It's just coming up to 10 minutes past 8. And if you're a regular listener to KZSU, you'll know that at 8:10 we do our Take 10 spot, where I have a guest in every week. And my guest, I'm delighted to say this week, is Geno Carvalho from YogaX. Good morning, Geno.
Good morning, John. Good to be here.
Thank you. Yes, I'm still learning the controls. I've only been here 10 years. Now, I was joking earlier on, Geno. YogaX has got nothing to do with Elon Musk, has it?
Not at this moment, but we're still accepting applications for funding. He's listening.
Cool. Can you explain to our listeners what YogaX is, please? Because it is based here on the Stanford campus.
That's right. That's right. YogaX is a special initiative at the School of Medicine, a special initiative of the chair of the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Science. And the mission of YogaX is the integration of yoga into healthcare settings. The program director is Christiane Brems, who is a clinical professor in psychiatry at Stanford as well. And we focus on trying to provide the most comprehensive training for advanced teachers and healthcare professionals to bring yoga services, specifically therapeutic yoga services, into clinical settings and also into community health settings.
We should make the point, Geno, that I know that you're a yoga teacher with many, many hours of experience under your belt. You're not a psychiatrist.
That's right.
And you're not an expert in the kind of lineage, the ancient wisdom of yoga, although I'm sure you're aware of it.
Yes, and of course my mentor is Christiane Brems is, I would say really informed in that, and it's ingrained in our teaching, and it is very much a part of how we attribute the trainings that we provide to the community in South Asia where this practice has originated. But there is also a lot to unpack in that lineage. So I think it's an area of research in of itself. My expertise is in public health and really taking a look at how the integration of the practice into healthcare settings can be effectively done, or how it's actually showing up already. And what are some of the barriers and facilitators to integrating yoga in healthcare settings? And this is a subject of some of the research that we've just launched this week, trying to empower the yoga teachers throughout the United States to tell their stories about how they are providing yoga, whether it be in their community or perhaps in some of these clinical settings, which doesn't always get labeled as yoga. A lot of times in the label of a class, you might hear something called mindful movement, or perhaps another series of labels that aren't necessarily attributing the practice and the service to yoga. So we may not be aware of just how helpful, just how effective, or just how popular this service is in some of the healthcare settings, but also in community health settings as well, and empowering these yoga teachers throughout the country to tell this story about how they are providing this service and how the communities are showing up in as they present the cultural elements of how yoga is showing up and benefiting those communities collectively as well.
Do you think yoga has historically been associated with wellness and health, or has it been about something else?
Yeah, I think that one of the beautiful things about yoga that we're starting to understand, I think now, especially in this moment in time post-COVID, is that yoga is a holistic and integrated practice that is very accessible. It's low cost and low risk. It is something that provides a lot of intentionality, whether it be someone who is providing the service, or if it's in your individual practice, or if it's how you take your individual practice off the mat and into your community, and that there is a tremendous beneficence in yoga. There's, of course, so much beneficial outcomes from the practice that are involved in kind of healing this Cartesian split that we've seen in much of healthcare, where if you have a physical ailment, you go over to a physical specialist and you deal with that physical ailment within that scope of practice. And if you have a mental health concern, you are assigned to go over to a mental health provider and address it in that context. And often those providers are even limited by their scope of practice and liability. So imagine having opportunity to perhaps address a mental health issue that we're going through movement practice, knowing that as we move, as we contract our muscles, as we take steps throughout the day, we lift our mood, we can decrease our inflammation, we can increase our cognitive capacities, our energy, our memory, our recall, and actually address some of those mental health issues beyond just talking about them. But a mental health provider may not feel comfortable telling you to get into a lunged position in order to engage with challenge and build resilience and embody the challenge that you're trying to overcome.
I think you're making some really good points there, Geno. Very interesting, because I think that we do tend to assume sometimes that our mental health and physical health is kind of disconnected. They're disconnected. But then when we do, if we're feeling a bit down, a bit blue, and you do something physical, often you can feel better.
Isn't that right?
Yeah. So there is an association already, and we tend to put them into different silos, I suppose.
We do, right? And that's kind of what we were talking about as the healing of the Cartesian split that we like to talk about with integrated care, where you see in healthcare today that there is a high popularity in medical students to pick a specialization. The incentive is there, for salary to pick a specialization, and that's an amazing way to study something and dive deep into a subject. But at some point, it needs to be integrated, and there needs to be a way to understand how we are all really this interconnected system that is codependent and co-regulating, and that we can definitely find a creative, holistic way to address these issues, rather than perhaps having a very specific mechanistic approach to it, maybe in the form of a pharmaceutical, or something that is maybe as simple as only moving or only talking, and looking for something that is more integrated and holistic.
Geno, I'm interested in what makes you tick. What brought you to yoga originally?
Yeah. Well, I have a background in radio, television, and film, so I appreciate all these levers in front of you, as you're mentioning. Yeah. I worked as an actor for a while, and as I played on stage, it was suggested that I could be more in my body and embody a character through studying yoga and taking that time to really integrate into myself and collect myself and do it in the context of telling a story about perhaps a character, right? So there's a little bit of my psychiatry experience there, I guess. There was an amazing teacher, Lars Coughlin, at San Jose State, who also taught at Stanford, at San Francisco State. And eventually, as I was working as an actor, I injured myself in a stunt. And as I was going through the challenges of rehabilitating, yoga was one of the things that helped me manage my pain. I kept dislocating my shoulder, and it was years of having to kind of put myself back together and realize that there are some things that I probably could make better choices about in terms of how I was moving and showing up.
Was this a stunt on stage?
It was, yes, in a live audience in a dark black box, and it made for an interesting choreography that followed the rest of the second act.
Had you dislocated your shoulder?
I did.
Goodness me, how old were you when that was going on, Geno?
Probably about 30 years old.
Wow, right, gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
So there were lots of reasons actually for you to get into yoga, weren't there?
Yeah, and honestly, the most recent endeavor took place with COVID, and I had been practicing and I had been using yoga as a tool to help with. I'm a health coach and trainer and nutrition, working in a clinic. providing those services. And it kept coming back to yoga. And during COVID, I thought it would be a good idea to study public health. And during that master's in public health program, I got an opportunity to do field work. And one of our cohort members was at Stanford and said, have you heard of YogaX? And I got an opportunity to kind of talk with YogaX, and YogaX said, hey, if you want to explore this subject, please have at it. And it allowed me to go out and have a conversation during this time in COVID when there was a ubiquity of people sharing their mental health challenges that were involved in this pandemic and the shutdown. And that ubiquity of sharing mental health challenges decreased some of the stigma, or at least I perceived that it decreased some of the stigma around mental health, which also increased the demand for mental health services and increased the awareness of the benefits of integrated holistic yoga, therapeutic yoga, more so than, say, like your fitness version of yoga that you see in studios, which also increased our understanding of a need to really help address the barriers to integrating yoga into healthcare settings in order to provide a more therapeutic service of yoga services, and even start to have a conversation about the educational standards that define what that service is.
Geno, you've told a fantastic story. If people want to find out more about what YogaX is doing, where can they go?
You can go to our website, yogaxteam.com. We're on social media, on Instagram and LinkedIn, and yeah, those are the main. We also have a YouTube channel where we offer a variety of classes that are free.
And one very quick, like 15-second tip for a listener. What could they do today if they're feeling a little bit low on a Friday morning? What's one thing that you could suggest that might give them a lift?
Well, maybe just taking a moment to ground. And if you feel comfortable closing your eyes, perhaps taking your attention inward and maybe just noticing the breath, noticing that you're breathing in when you're breathing in, noticing that you're breathing out when you're breathing out. And as you ground the body and as you ground the breath, maybe just inviting the mind to join.
I'm there already, I think. Geno, thank you so much.
Thank you, John. So good to be here.
That was Geno Carvalho, who is YogaX Program Manager on the Stanford campus here, and a delight to have Geno's company this morning on KZSU.